Welcome, everyone. I'm Jackie Lewis. I'm the clinical nutritionist for Being Healthy, and welcome to tonight's live session. It feels like it's been a long time since we've done one of these, so I'm getting back comfy in my seat, and so is Savanna. So tonight we are chatting with Savanna Bowtell-Harris. I knew I'd get it wrong. Harris. I'll introduce first. We're talking about exercise and encouraging everyday activity into your everyday life without having to gear up and get your lycra on and go to the gym. So a lot more about incidental activity and its importance and how to bring that into your life, quite simply in a lot of ways. And we have expert exercise physiologist with us, Savanna, from Healthy Lifestyles in Brisbane. So welcome. Thanks for your time tonight.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. And so tell me a little bit about your role as an exercise physiologist and the importance of, keeping ourselves moving throughout the day.
Yeah, of course. So my role as an exercise physiologist is more or less kind of working with clients to discover what goals they have, what's going on with their lives. So often there might be an injury, there might be some kind of chronic disease or pain that they're working with throughout their life or having to deal with. Trying to get to the bottom of that, understanding what they are already doing to try and kind of combat these things. And then we discuss and try and make a plan on how to fit that movement and physical activity into their life so that they can get the benefits from it to kind of help them through whatever it is that they're going through, but also more importantly, trying to get them to the point where they're achieving their goals.
And that's the first thing, isn't it, is building that platform to work from so that you can start to, I guess, increase the intensity and, up the ante a little bit. And doing that safely when you haven't been a regular exerciser is important.
Yeah, 100%. So I think what I value about my role and my job is that we understand that not everyone is an exercise person. So we can create a very unique and specialized plan for each individual we interact with or work with to try and figure out what it is that they're going to most enjoy and stick to, I suppose. Yeah, as well.
That's great. And so looking at working ways, and we always talk about choosing something that you enjoy and making that your thing or your activity. And I think when we embark on this weight loss surgery journey, it's like we tick off these boxes of do the surgery and do all the other things that I need to do as far as change my diet. And then the next thing that comes up is let's get more active. And I think that, I don't know if I'm wrong, and the audience can correct me if I am, I wonder if we all kind of think, oh, now I have to go to the gym. Do you find that is a common kind of understanding that if I want to increase my activity levels, it's an automatic thing that they need to go to the gym? Or do people kind of explore activity in different ways?
No, I would probably agree with you there that most people will turn around and go, no, I don't want to go to the gym, or, oh, I have to go to the gym, as like the only thing that they maybe know the most about, because there's gyms everywhere. They hear lots of people that go to the gym and they don't maybe see themselves as a gym person. So then they might think, well, there's nothing out there for me.
Yeah, good point.
So I would agree with you. That's definitely most people's like initial thought process. And for some, it might be because they've not had a very good experience at the gym, or they've heard other people's stories. So I suppose a big part of my role is to kind of break down the stigma around gyms, because not all of them are what we think they are. But also, if it really isn't what someone wants to do, then there are definitely a lot of things out there that we can do. And I suppose later on, I'll kind of break down different types of exercise and how it contributes to our day. And a lot of it actually comes from that incidental exercise rather than that.
Yeah, incidental. Stuff. Tell me, can you explain why? We're hearing it more and more because obviously now we have a remote control for the TV and we have all these different things that do things for us. We're living in what we term an obesogenic environment where movement and opportunities to move, even changing the channel, we don't need to do. There's a number of things that are quite automated. And now with online shopping or Uber Eats or whatever it is, we can sit and organise so many things these days. Incidentally, what are we missing?
I think incidentally we're missing just that general kind of need for more active day-to-day activities. I suppose, like you said, everything has become automatic. Even, say, grocery shopping, we can get it dropped to our door, or we can pick it up right out the front of the shops, and then we drive it straight into our garage, and then it's like a 2-meter walk to the bench. So certain things there that could be counted as incidental exercise has been, kind of taken out of our day-to-day routines.
It's that outsourcing mentality, isn't it? And I think, we all look at how can we outsource the jobs we don't like necessarily, but often they're quite the active ones, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. So the mowing the lawns, the washing the cars, carrying groceries, that is a large part of how we get our incidental exercise, or contributes to it as well. Yeah.
Excellent. And so looking at different types of activity, if the gym is off the list, do you then provide your patients with a range of options, or do they maybe have a look back at what they used to enjoy when they were younger? What's your process of helping them select, appropriate activity?
Yeah, definitely. It's probably a little bit of both. So depending on the client that I'm working with, they might not have a lot of exposure or have that past experience where they may not have participated in much physical activity. So then we might explore options where I provide a list of things that we could or couldn't do potentially, or we could try. Other people know potentially, nope, gym's not my thing, but there's something in the past that they used to do that they enjoyed, and we can try and revisit that or expand in it, probably more modify it, depending on where they are, to try and bring back something that they loved. So it's probably a little bit of both, depending on the situation,
And do you look for enjoyment? Is that where you go, or do you look for what's appropriate for the activity level, or if someone's got injury or something pre-existing that has been limiting them? Do you look at A, what do you enjoy, or do you look at B, what is going to be the best way to bring you to a position where you can do the activities that you enjoy?
Yeah, so again, it's probably a little bit of both, but definitely the main focus will be about enjoyment. Essentially, if I give a program or recommendations that person's not going to enjoy, they're not going to do it. So it is about enjoyment, but then there might be a couple of, say, critical exercises or things that I might highly recommend based on that person's injury or condition that we might have to just provide that little extra justification for, just so that it makes a little bit more sense. They understand the reasoning why it's important, and it might lead to just a little bit more, I suppose, adherence to just kind of push through that thing that might be suitable for them. And usually when it's injury related, it's only for a short period of time, because recovery is kind of on the horizon, hopefully. And so, they can see it as a bit of just a short-term thing to tolerate. But we'll focus mostly on the enjoyment. Welcome, everyone. If you didn't hear the intro, I'm Savanna. I'm an accredited exercise physiologist, and I'm just going to go through some information now that I've kind of put together to kind of help everyone maybe plan their weeks out a little bit better, try and find ways to add movement into your day and try and increase that incidental exercise to make movement, I suppose, less scary, less daunting, less of a chore, and a bit more of a lifestyle. So, can't change. Here we go. So just a little bit of an overview. So I'm just going to kind of quickly explore simple exercises to add in your day, and we'll cover information like activity guidelines, the difference between structured and non-structured exercise, and some example exercises there. We'll also have a look at some strategies to help prepare your weeks, a little bit about how to create those habits in line with any weight goals or other goals that you might have, and then hopefully try and break down some of those expectations or realities around physical activity. So let's just quickly discuss, or I'll discuss with you guys, the activity guidelines. So some may already know them, some might not. So I just thought it would be a good way to start, just to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page of what is recommended. So for adults, that 18 to 64 years of age range, the recommendation is to try and hit 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week, and or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise. So that's working harder, so then you don't have to do it as much, if that makes sense. So some examples of some moderate intensity exercise might be things like your brisk walking, you might like to play golf, mowing the lawn, swimming, and that could look like actually swimming laps if that's what you're into. Or maybe you have a pool and your kids love being in the water and you could just do a day out to the pool or in the backyard or something like that. Examples of vigorous intensity exercise are things that tend to get your heart rate up a lot more. You tend to be more puffy during the exercise, and you're probably breaking out in a sweat a little bit more as well. So that's your jogging, your aerobics, some fast cycling, or your kind of bit more competitive or social sports, such as like netball or soccer. I think it's important to remember as well to try and add strength-based exercises to your activities. And here's just a few examples of bit more structured exercise, like your push-ups or your squats, but also trying not to forget that household tasks that involve like lifting, carrying, and digging, they can also count as strength-based activities. Important to remember here that any physical activity is better than doing none. So if you're not doing anything right now, just start on the lower end by doing some and then build it up to that recommended amount, slowly, gradually increasing it week after week. So I've just put together maybe like a mock week, what that might look like. So if you're doing a moderate intensity exercise, that could look like 5 days a week, and you might choose to do 3 days of 30-minute walking. Then you might mow the lawn one day, and then you might do swimming, like I said before, and that might be structured like laps back and forward, or you could just do a big kind of 30 minutes, hour out in the pool with the kids kind of thing. You might choose the vigorous intensity option. Some prefer it because you don't have to do it for as long because you're working harder. So that might look like a 30-minute jog. And then you might do a 15-minute more high-intensity workout that incorporates some of that strength-based training I mentioned on the previous slide. And then you might like being in the water. So then you might do a 30-minute water aerobics class. So as you can see there, the moderate intensity is you're hitting that activity or more structured activity, I suppose, for 5 days a week, whereas your vigorous intensity to hit that recommendation, you're only having to do about 3 days a week. So it's quite a bit less, and it depends on your lifestyle, what's going to, and kind of other things that is going on with you that might reflect which one or which way you do it. Just also to remember that even a combination of both can be really helpful as well and be a little bit more time saving. All right, so we're going to explore this concept of structured versus non-structured exercise. So structured exercise is the exercise you performed with an underlying purpose and goal. So that's like when you go for a run, you know you're going to get 5 kilometers out, you might try and stay within a certain heart rate range or something like that, where there's a purpose, there's a goal, why you're doing that activity. Whereas your non-structured exercise, this is what we also refer to as your incidental exercise. It's a more free form of activity and there's no direct purpose or goal, and it tends to be a little bit more open-ended. Another way you might see it or hear it is as this acronym called NEAT. So it stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and it does account for a significant portion of your total energy expenditure. So a little diagram over here in the corner. So your basal metabolism, so that's just your body working to keep you functioning, takes up the largest portion as expected. Your structured exercise only takes up about 12%, but your NEAT here, your incidental exercise, is about 22%. So that's just in a little kind of pie diagram like that. But if you were to think about it another way, so 1 hour of structured exercise is only about 4% of your day, whereas NEAT, or that incidental exercise, ends up being about 63% of your day. So it's a larger portion of activity that kind of keeps you healthy, keeps you moving, gives you that added benefits that exercise can give you. And yeah, should be aimed to try and enter into your day a little bit more regularly. So examples of this incidental exercise. So I've got some really kind of easy basic pictures here just to kind of show you how you can add it into your day, and a little bit of a list down here on the side as well. So the main, more obvious one that everyone would probably, anyone you speak to might recommend, is walking instead of using transport. So either walking to your transport, walking back from your transport, or walking instead of transport. That's probably the most immediate, kind of easier way that we can add in that incidental exercise. But some other versions here are taking the stairs instead of the elevator, doing any kind of play-based activities with any younger people that might be in your household or within your family, carrying the groceries, using a stand-up desk. So this also kind of touches on the fact that you want to try and limit any sitting or sedentary behavior in your day. So a stand-up desk is a good way to kind of stop that kind of behavior. And then we've got things like washing the car, and even something as simple as fidgeting while you might be at a desk or somewhere where you just can't really stand up. So hopefully this kind of provides a little bit of clarity on where you can add a little bit of a bit more incidental activity into your day. All right, we're going to explore some strategies around how to better prepare your weeks, and also help and try some strategies to try and set you up for success, which we always want to do. We want to try and set ourselves up for success rather than not, so that we can be better prepared. So I'm going to get a little bit sciencey here, so hopefully you'll stay with me. But I'm going to introduce you guys to some concepts called behavior change techniques, and another one called implementation intentions. So the first one, the behavior change techniques. So these are strategies to help individuals change their behavior to promote better health. So just as a big picture thing, there are 93 behavior change techniques that are put into a taxonomy, and researchers apply these BCTs to their research to learn which is more effective for the population that they're researching. So on the next couple of slides, I have done a little bit of that hard work for you guys, and I will share which BCTs tend to be more effective for weight loss interventions. On the following slides after that, I'm going to provide some examples of some implementation intentions. So these implementation intentions are self-regulatory strategies in the form of an if-then plan that act to lead to better goal attainment, as well as help in habit and behavior modification. So they specify the when, where, how portions of a goal-directed behavior. So these are quite important too to helping better prepare your week. So an example and how to apply some behavior change techniques. So like I said before, there are 4 techniques that I have found that have been that are effective of a greater than 50%. So pretty good chances that something here might work for you. The first one is goal setting. And everyone's probably heard goal setting everywhere. There's different acronyms called SMART goals, or there's probably something else that's not coming to mind. But basically, I want to talk about goal setting in a little bit of a more looser way. So we all know a goal is to set or agree on something that's a bit more defined in terms of a positive outcome of a wanted behavior. So, for example, set a weight loss goal of 0.5 kilogram over 1 week as an outcome to change eating patterns. So one thing I want to highlight about goals is that it has been proven that more vague goals, so the least specific goals, are more effective. And if you can set a daily and weekly goal, it's going to be more effective than just setting one weekly goal or a daily goal. So just daily goals tend to set people up for more failure, I suppose, because it's too specific. There's a shorter time frame on it. And if you don't achieve it within that day, it can play around with your motivation a little bit. Whereas a weekly goal is a little bit too long. So it allows too much time for procrastination. We can put off whatever we need to do within that week till the very end. And then that's not setting ourselves up for success. So setting that daily and weekly goal combined so that you have the week to almost achieve that daily goal, and then to only review it at the end of the week or even fortnightly, because then that reviewing of the goal is keeping you a little bit accountable so that you are making sure you're keeping on track and you're achieving what you want to achieve. So that kind of, I suppose, not being specific in this goal is changing the outcome of eating patterns. It's not very specific on what eating patterns, when or where or how. So that's what is an example, I suppose, of being a little bit vague. All right, the next one is self-monitoring. Now, this one is probably the most used in kind of clinic work that I do. It probably is one of the most effective, and it provides a visual for clients or people to see where or how they're fitting in exercise to their day. So self-monitoring is a method for the person to monitor and record the outcomes of their behaviors as a part of a behavior change strategy. So the example there is to ask someone or yourself to weigh themselves at the end of each day over a 2-week period and record their daily weight on a graph to increase exercise behaviors. That might be one way. That might not be correct in terms of what you should do. But if I were to apply it to an exercise setting, so I would ask my client who might be a little bit ambivalent, might not know how to add exercise into their day. We might start small and we might try and add one thing to their week, and I want them to write it down on the calendar in that week where they did it. Then they can see, okay, I was able to achieve that in that week. The next week, they try and increase it and expand it on another, more exercise to another day. And so then I would encourage them to write down the 2 days that they did the exercise and kind of flow on from there. So then that self-monitoring is keeping them a little bit more accountable because they have to write it on the calendar when they have done the exercise. When they've performed it, and then we can increase it week after week after week to get them closer to those recommended guidelines. All right, the next two are a little bit more about kind of being a bit more social. So what they've found for weight loss interventions is including a little bit of a social reward. So that verbal or nonverbal reward, if and only there has been an effort or progress in performing the behavior. So this acts as a little bit more like positive reinforcement. And the example there is congratulate the person for each day they eat a reduced fat diet. So there's that praise component. The other one is social support. So this is providing or receiving more social support from people like friends or relatives or colleagues or whoever your support system might be. getting that praise or reward for performance of that behavior. So there's a few examples at the bottom there. So advising that person to call a buddy when they experience the urge to smoke, or arrange a housemate to encourage continuation of the behavior change program. So this is kind of putting yourself around like-minded people that can help you on that exercise journey, who's going to be supportive of the things that you want to achieve week to week, and someone who's going to provide you that encouragement along the way to kind of stay on track, help you motivate yourself, or maybe they might provide a little bit of motivation on those days that you don't really want to, or you feel less energetic or motivated to do something. So a good support system that either you can provide support or receive support from. All right. So now we'll explore the if-then plans. So this probably is the second most important thing that I use day to day, along with those self-monitoring techniques. So the if-then plan is where if situation A occurs, then I will do X behavior. So these self-made plans capture a pre-specified response if a certain situation occurs. So for example, if there are stairs, I will take them. If it rains in the morning, instead of walking, I will do a HIIT workout in the living room. So this is just setting yourself up for a success. This is another way you can self-monitor as well. You can write these things down in an exercise journal each week when you review your goals or review where you exercised, and you can kind of explore why you didn't do something one week and why you did, and create those if-then plans around them. Another way to kind of, I suppose, see it or use this if-then plans can be a when, where, how. So in the morning, I'm going to garden. I have prepared the clothes and the tools by the door. So you've got your when, you've got your where, and you've got your how. You've got all your things prepared already, easy to go, so that you're less likely to kind of avoid doing that activity. And again, you're setting yourself up for success. Cool. So let's have a look at some expectations around physical activity and even introducing habits. So we're first just going to explore how long it takes to introduce a behavior, how long it kind of takes to be automatic, and I suppose a little bit around how long it takes to see and feel those benefits around exercise. So these all tend to be, I suppose, expectations or realities, and they tend to either maybe knock our motivation sometimes because it's not happening quick enough, and kind of get in the way of what we want to achieve. So as you might know, habits, they're actions that are triggered automatically in response to contextual cues that have been associated with their performance. So a study has shown that it takes 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. It does depend sometimes on the goal and therefore the habit in question, but it is important to start gradually and increase slowly to avoid any burnout. So for example, with exercise, I wouldn't recommend that you just jump straight into the 150 minutes per week if you haven't been exercising beforehand, because it's going to be a lot. It's a big change, and you're likely to burn out before you get to that point where the habit of exercising 150 minutes per week is automatic. So this is just a little bit of an example how you do want to start increasing gradually. You want it to kind of last and get to that point where you want to be over that 66 days, because then after that, it's a bit more habitual, it's a bit more automatic. You don't really think about it, you just do it. So you might start at 9 in the morning, and every morning, when you wake up, you're going to put on your runners, you're going to go for the walk, and you're going to be back in time before you start work at 9. Things like that. It's also been shown that the minimal amount of time is 4 to 8 weeks to begin to see or feel exercise adaptations and the benefits from exercise. So I would probably say that 4-week mark, that lower end of the recommended time, is when you start to feel the exercise benefits. So you usually have to wait that 4 weeks until you start feeling that kind of high you might get from exercise, those happy hormones. You might start to feel a little bit more energetic and things like that. And then usually to that 8-week mark, even maybe 12 weeks, that's when you start to see those physical adaptations. So that's in line with this 66 days that it takes to make a behavior automatic. So in that time you're making the behavior automatic, you will start to slowly see the changes and feel the changes that exercise brings you. So just to try and make a little link there between those two, I suppose, concepts. Some of you might already know these numbers, but in case you didn't, it is good to keep in mind, because I suppose one of the number one things that people might stop exercising for is because they might not have given it as much time to kind of be able to see those or feel those adaptations or benefits from exercise. They haven't given it the time to make that habit a little bit more automatic, so they're not having to think about it as much every time. And then with that, without those adaptations, they're not feeling the benefits or they're not seeing the recovery in their injury or their pain or anything like that as well. So just making sure that you understand that exercise and those benefits, it does take time, but it's definitely worthwhile in the long run, because you're going to see more benefits. You're going to have longer lasting effects the more automatic you can make the behavior of adding exercise into the week. Why is it difficult to break a habit? In particular, those kind of naughty habits, I suppose. It's because when you do an enjoyable behavior, it prompts the brain to release dopamine, which is one of those happy hormones I was described before. So when I say break a habit, that's probably one of those more sedentary behaviors that we were talking about at the very start. So those ways that we tend to make life a little bit more automatic, or kind of don't do that incidental exercise like carrying the groceries or walking the dog or walking to that transport like the bus stop or something like that. So usually we find driving enjoyable, or we prefer sitting on the couch instead of going for a walk and things like that. So even though it's not the greatest behavior, we still get a little bit of dopamine kind of release from that because we find it enjoyable. So just trying to kind of emphasize, maybe use some of those goal setting techniques or self-monitoring just to try and persevere through those 66 days where you're trying to make that behavior a little bit more automatic, so that you can get that dopamine release from exercise rather than a sedentary behavior. So one strategy researchers have suggested is trying to identify places, people, or activities that are linked in your mind to certain habits and then change the behavior towards those. So just a food-related one is, instead of snacking on potato chips, trying to swapping them for a healthier alternative like popcorn. Or instead of reaching for a cigarette, try considering a new flavor of chewing gum or flavored hard candy. So trying to find that a little bit more of a positive swap. So instead of sitting on the couch, trying to go for that 15-minute walk with the dog. So trying to make those little changes there. All right, last thing I'm going to talk you guys through is hopefully a little bit of an insight on how to manage some setbacks. So if there's something you guys do take out of this, is that change isn't linear. So it occurs gradually. Setbacks are almost guaranteed. It's a part of the process. I have setbacks. Jackie has setbacks. Everyone has setbacks in our lives. It's just, it kind of becomes a mind over matter situation where we have to try and remember that everyone has a setback, trying to remember that it's not the end of your journey. You just have to try and find a new way back onto your exercise journey, or use that support system that you have to try and help you get back on track and try and pick up where you left off. And yes, you might have to decrease your exercise a little bit, but you know that you're going to have that muscle memory. It's going to come back to you in no time, and that you're going to be back where you started, if not stronger, because you had that little bit of a break. So sometimes breaks can be good. It gets us further along, especially if you found a point where you've plateaued a little bit. Trying to remind yourself to not be your worst enemy. So when setbacks do occur, we can be a little bit more unmotivated, a little bit more destructive in terms of our kind of inner talk. So try not to let any of these setbacks destroy your confidence, and just remember that everyone is going to have this little mental battle with themselves. And so that, for example, I might just use an example here. So say you didn't do the exercise you wanted to do that day. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's trying to just acknowledge, okay, I didn't do that because of this today. Maybe I can make it up tomorrow. I have the rest of the week to make it up. I can still try and be a little bit more active. One day of kind of non-activity isn't going to be the end of the world, as long as you try and just jump back onto that journey the next day, and you know that you're going to try and keep going. You're not going to just give up because you missed one day. Try and remember those implementation strategies when you start to feel like you might be slipping a little bit. So those if-then plans, try and make that pre-specified plan the night before, especially for that next day, so that you're prepared for whatever might come at you that next day in the morning, whether it's bad weather, whether it's a closed gym, whether it's a dog emergency or anything like that. You might have that backup plan just in case, that if-then plan. Pain management. So if you're struggling with something a little bit more specific, like you have different chronic pain, different conditions or anything like that, I do recommend speaking to an exercise professional, like an exercise physiologist, just to help you manage that pain a little bit better with specific programs and techniques to manage flare-ups. So someone with say arthritis are going to have flare-ups on different days, and it's kind of being able to understand and have the tools in your back pocket to be able to still achieve what you want to achieve, but working around things like a flare-up that might be with that arthritis. And then the last point there is, and I've probably said it a few times, but just surround yourself with like-minded people. So those support systems, people who can help you, who you don't mind sharing your journey with, that can be a really big difference in terms of what you can achieve week in, week out, because you're surrounded with people that are supportive and positive and going to help you through everything. Like I said before, speak with an accredited exercise physiologist if you have any further questions, or I have put my email there if you have any specific questions about this presentation, or something that I said, then you can reach out.
Thank you.
No problem.
I think some really valid points there. I really like a few of those, the if and then. So it's not, well, that's it, I can't go, it's raining. It's, well, when it rains, I'll go to the, inside of exercise, or I've got a video that I use, or there's some being beaten by the weather, because it's always going to happen.
Yes, exactly. And there's definitely many ways where we can probably think, oh, this is happening, I can't do it anymore. Yeah. When in reality there's probably definitely something that you can be doing. And it's just trying to create that plan before it happens, so that, you've got that plan and you're going to probably more likely follow through with it.
Yeah, contingency. I know Maria Montessori always said there's no such thing as bad weather, it's just the wrong clothing. So also making sure you've got I have, and if you have dogs, you'll know, because you go whatever happens, because otherwise they're a disaster. So you've got jackets for the dogs and for you, and off you go. Just put a cap on. And I think that's a really great way of just beating the alternative, because coming home to the couch destroyed is, walking is better than that.
Yes, exactly. I played soccer, and so one of my coaches used to say when it was raining, we'd walk out on the pitch and we'd be like, oh, it's raining, so it's awful. And he's like, nah, it's perfect conditions. Yeah. And so, it's just how you look at it, I suppose. And
have a look at how they play in England. We're complaining about it in Queensland. I think when it's an invalid argument, but I think they play in sleet and snow over there, don't they? It's terrible.
Exactly. Yeah, I know they play.
I really enjoyed that, and just the whole combining your goals and the reviewing and accountability. I think are major players, and it gave us a really succinct way of structuring our week and planning. What will fit in there. And I love the setback. It's like, expect a setback. And I don't know if I've heard it framed like that before. It's a positive thing. And like you say, setback, have a rest, regroup, have a think about what went wrong, and then try again.
Definitely, yeah. And I think with a setback, it might not be, sometimes it's what went wrong, but sometimes it's just kind of life that does sometimes get in the way. Not in the way, but might take preference. So it's just understanding that that happens. It happens to everyone, and trying to find that way back onto that journey that you were doing before kind of life happened. And then being able to continue with it without, I suppose, going all the way back to the very start.
And I think I read somewhere, it's like, if you have a habit, it's often undone like if you walk every day, it becomes so habitual. But they say don't have more than 3 days where you don't do that, because that's when you'll start to find something else to do with that time. So it's being aware of not how easy it is to break a habit, but how things will fill that spot. If you're not keeping your eye on the ball, I suppose. Yeah,
exactly. And another way to kind of look at that we say in the clinic all the time is, if you don't use it, you lose it. So you can kind of apply that in a few different settings where, if you don't keep doing something or say using your muscles or anything like that, you tend to lose that habit, or, like you said, fill it with something else that might not be as productive.
Yeah, and also remembering that our brains, like you were talking about dopamine and how we get a reward from, even if it is sitting on the couch because we enjoy it, there's a bit of a kick there. And I think when we try and remove what we are terming, a bad habit or something we don't want to do anymore as part of our new healthy lifestyle, I don't think we can just take things out without filling that space with something that's equally as enjoyable or gives you that same. So it's looking at, when I'm sitting on the couch, what's that need I'm meeting? Is it me time, or is it relaxation, or is it, whatever it is, and really exploring kind of what that means for you, and then seeing if you can bring it in just in a more active kind of, activity that gives you the same kick in a way. I think when we look at, I'm not going to eat chocolate, I'm not going to eat this, I'm not going to do that, and you're trying to set yourself up with the no's, it needs to be replaced with something that gives you some pleasure.
Yeah, 100%. And something I read a little while ago, actually, that I should have mentioned is, like, along with that kind of, I suppose, reward system in a way, you can partner exercise, so something that might not be as enjoyable, with something that is enjoyable. For example, if you have like an audio book that you love listening to, and that's the reason why you sit down on the couch is to listen to that, maybe you could partner only being able to read that audio book while you're walking on the treadmill. Or while you go outside for a walk, or while you're carrying the groceries in, or something like that. So kind of still doing the thing that you love, but you're just changing the place that you do it.
Yeah. I think there's so many options for that, isn't there?
Yeah. It's kind of almost endless.
There's books, there's music, we've got it all wherever we go. So housework and boring cleaning and mopping, which is a really important part of incidental activity, might be something that we don't look forward to. But often if you do start going, like some weekends I'll come back home and it might be gardening, and I just think, I'll quickly just go out the back and do this one thing. And then 2.5 hours later, I've, been out in the garden, moving things around and, cutting things and lifting things. And you think it's just a massive expenditure of energy that I didn't necessarily plan. But
no,
you get the ball rolling just with one task, and then there's always something else to do in the yard, I find.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, so exactly, you kind of end up being there a little bit longer than you planned, and you probably don't realize the time is going because if you're using that audiobook example, for example, you're listening, your mind's a little bit distracted on those kind of heavy, more strenuous tasks that you might be doing.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. I'm just checking to see if we've got any questions. Is anyone? I've asked all the questions. Sorry. It doesn't look like we've got questions, but give us a thumbs up if you have found Savanna's information to be helpful. And we have recorded, so we will be sending out the recording and you can access it again. On another note, we were saying earlier off air how earlier in the year we did a range of exercise classes, and Savanna was part of that program as well. I was going to see if I can get our team to dig up that. I think there was quite a few exercise classes that we ran. It was when the last lockdown was on, I think, maybe early in the year. So I was thinking it would be a great opportunity to sort of show them back in the group again and on the page, so that people have, now we've motivated you all to get moving. We can show you how to do it safely. And a lot of it is about that sort of slow increment. I think as well, when we're ready and we're gung-ho and we want to get things done, that's where your risk of injury is hitting things a bit too hard too early, or increasing things at a rate that's not that you're not quite ready for.
Definitely.
So, take it easily and safely. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Savanna?
Well, I was just going to expand on that kind of note a little bit, as well as also remembering to get good rest or sleep is important as well. And that can kind of be counted as a form of activity because that's where our body recovers in that sleep. And just minimizing the risk of injury is making sure that you're well rested as well each day, and you'll feel a lot better getting closer to that 8 hours sleep than trying to do everything on 4 hours sleep or something.
Totally undervalued, I think, sleep. It's one of the first things, as a nutritionist, believe it or not, it's one of the first things that I make sure I fix before we do too much else if I'm treating somebody. If they're not sleeping, they're not, they'll be craving food and they'll be tired, and it just sets you up for all these different obstacles in the way. So we work with sleep and relaxation and rest first. And it's also where, you are using a lot more oxygen and your body's recovering and building. So it's a really important part of the day.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I agree.
So thank you. It's been really enlightening and some really valuable information there that we can all take and implement as well. And I'm sure there'll be questions in the group later on. If you've got anything that comes up in the audience, if you've got any questions, you're welcome to pop them in the group. And I'll either direct you to Savanna or we can connect you somehow as well. And we'll pop your email address down underneath as well. Thanks, Savanna.
Perfect. No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a month or so.